Hey there guys, this is Velo. We're going to do another making history video. This is going to be another introduction to how to play one of the major powers of the game. I also apologize for my first video. I didn't know a lot about recording. I still don't. And I wasn't aware that the sound was very, very high for the game, so hopefully it's a little bit better now. And also, for whatever reason, because of how it records, you guys can't see my mouse, so I'm going to try and explain that a little bit more, but if I mess up a few times, well, that's why, because I kind of forget that. But yeah, we're going to start a new game. It's going to be on Limits of Peace, and this time around, we're going to play as the other major Axis power, Japan. Again, we'll just use the default scenario settings. This is going to be a what's the best opening to play as Japan if you're playing Limits of Peace, whether it's with friends, against the computer, what have you. I'm going to try and give my opinion of your best opening tactics. Now, I'm not going to go into the nuances of the user interface or where the menus are or anything, so if you get lost along the way or if this is your first time playing the game, I recommend playing the tutorial first. So we'll go back here really quick. It's right here on the main menu, and it goes over all of those basics to get you used to the user interface. So I won't be going over any of those details, just so you guys know. But let's jump into it. So Japan, default settings, let's start the game. Let's get this ball rolling. Okay, so as Japan, you're one of the two island nations. As you can see, the majority of Japan here around the C zone that I'm clicking is your heartland. If you lose that, you lose the game. You know, much like United Kingdom up here, this brown, that is their heartland. So both Japan and the United Kingdom are going to play very similarly in those aspects, in that if you lose your island, you're probably going to lose the game, or at least lose your ability to impact what's going on in the game. So first and foremost, you have to keep that defended. The best way to look at this is with a metaphor. You're a bug. And what I mean by that is a bug has a very tough exoskeleton. Your exoskeleton is your navy, as is Britain's. If your navy falls, then all that's left is the squishy insides of what makes you a bug, and that's your very small combat power on land. So don't worry so much about defending yourself on land. Make sure that you're managing your navy and that you're constantly aware of what's going on in the Pacific. This is all your domain. You have supremacy over it. Don't let anyone else take that supremacy from you. Alright, so with that in mind, where can we start? So we don't have any wars, we don't have anything going on, but no matter what game you play, inevitably China is going to be a problem. And other than that, you don't have any immediate dangers. You know, Britain might have some stuff going on over in India here, Russia might do some things, but even with Russia, primarily their heartland is going to be centered around Ukraine, which is this area west all the way over to here. That's their primary heartland of production. So China's really your only concern. And typically, if you fight China right away and beat him, the only input that might happen is Britain might attack you, or if you declare too many wars, America will sail across the Pacific, and they are stronger than you, so you're incentivized to not bite off more than you can chew. So let me get into some of the typical things that I do setting up my industry. So I'm just going to quickly transform all of these over to industrial production. I do this with almost every country. This is just my baseline because you want your cities doing something, and if you really have nothing better to do, then industry is a good choice. Or goods, but we'll get to that. You always start out with very high goods percentage, so industry is a better place to start. And what I mean by that is when you click here and hover over this little toaster, I can see my goods supply level. The middle number is at 100%. And this is the toaster that's on the right-hand side. There's 4 of these menus. Looks like a toaster, a pile of money, a guy with a hammer, and a helmet with 2 weapons crossed. But for now, that toaster, that's what we're looking at. We don't get a penalty unless it's below 50%. So we want to keep that at 100%. And this is when I'm clicked on the first tab, the globe. That's how I pull this up. Again, I keep forgetting you guys can't see my mouse. So I'm going to then click on the gold bars, and I'm going to click on Japanese industry, and that's how I got all of these to get to where they need to be. Now, let's do some world trade. And really, this is what you should do first if you're playing with other people. Always go to trade negotiations, metal. Sweden is always offering. You should grab that. They're one of the biggest producers, and they're not a main country, so they're going to sell to anyone, and especially as Japan, you need metals. You will need a lot of metals, and you don't have a good way of producing them. And Germany might trade with you, but if Germany falls, then you're kind of boned. My opinion is that out of all of these resources that you see on this world market screen that I have up in the middle, metals are the most important. So buy all 88 of those, send, and you can see our supply rate went up in the middle. That's very important. Now, let's just say you're playing with someone else, maybe France, and they bought these metals already. So you're coming here and you're like, oh shoot, nobody's offering, that's them. You know, you can still buy from other nations, they might eventually cut you off, but Sweden rarely cuts you off. So what you can do is you can still buy from a nation, select Sweden, and the game is programmed to give you at least 30. Well, usually. I guess it depends on what nation you are, and there's some nuances to the RNG, but 20 or 30, as you can see there, I selected 20 this time, and Sweden's like, okay, we'll give you an extra 20. So we've now bought from Sweden 108. So that's a little pool that you can kind of bounce from. Now, the other thing that I do in World Trade here is I always double check my aid. Aid means you're giving people resources and you're not expecting any money from them. Not a good thing to do unless you're with other players and you're just trying to help someone out. So there's never really any arms being traded, but there's always imports and exports of sometimes food, metals, coal, and oil. We're going to cut off all the oil. As I've explained before, oil is only used in arms, which is the very first one at the very top of the screen here that I have 200 stockpile, minus 192 each turn. The helmet with the 2 weapons crossed behind it, that is arms. I do not use arms at all because the only thing they are used for is, or the only thing oil is used for is arms. So don't buy oil. You don't need it. We won't be using it. I also like saving my money where I can, and since we're only going to buy from Sweden because they're only the reliable ones right now, for now we're just going to cut off everybody else. We're just going to be self-sufficient, because then if someone else decides to try and cut us off later because of a war, we won't see too much impact on our resources. I also like double checking if I'm, sometimes by default, depending on what nation you are requesting, and I don't see any requests here. So let's get into infrastructure. I always click on this little house of the corn cob. This will organize by your population, the second bar to the left here. Production levels. It looks like a guy or like a wheelbarrow. I'm not sure what that icon is between the corn and the house with the corn. I'm looking at the road that starts with 7,673. So I like getting those populations in my first 3 territories, Kanto, Fangten, and Kensai. I think you can see what's highlighting here. We're going to raise all of these up. And this takes a lot of time. You know, even this one at level 1, we can click on Fangten here and we can see, you know, to upgrade to level 1, you know, it's going to be finished in 55 turns on the right hand side. So we're just going to hit the X at the bottom of the screen, go back to that menu. And sometimes I'll also click here and see, well, Kyushu is actually probably a better choice here because Fiangtian is over here and they might take it back from us, but getting it to level 1 isn't a horrible idea because it produces some pretty good food. But we're going to upgrade Kyushu as well, which is this country right here. Because again, Kyushu, if you don't know your geography, Kensai, which is right there, and Kanto, which is right there, is all on our main island. So again, if we lose everything else, we still have food production later on in the game. Alright, and a lot of this is pre-setup. So the other thing that I will do in here is I will look at my resource producers. This is what's making me my coals and my metal. And I will click where it says output, or rather maxed, and I will look and see how high these numbers can get. So Kyushu is very, very good, and again, it's on my main island. So if I upgrade transportation, which is this number right here, with the little, looks like a San Francisco bridge almost, that has a 16 by it, right next to the one that I clicked expanding, that 16 adds onto the output. So if we get Kyushu to the max, 208, it'll be 208 plus 16. So really, our output can get up to 224. And the higher the overall max number, the higher the overall transportation level could get. So we are going to actually click on Kyushu, and we're also going to upgrade this transportation infrastructure to get that as high as we can. I will do the same thing with Hokkaido, because it's also pretty good. And we'll leave Karafutu. It's just this little island here, and Russia might take it from us, so there's no sense in putting a bunch of resources into it. Now, I will also click above where it is expanding is right now, where it says orders. And that just makes it so I can quickly just click on these territories that are at maintain and go to maximize. This is telling me I want to increase all of my resource producers, whether it be oil, metals, or coal, to the highest that it possibly can output. This will cost a little bit more money, but the resources are more valuable than the money. Debt is okay. You will have debt with most countries, and that is manageable. Losing territory is far more harsh. Okay, so now we're set up. This is, no matter what game I'm playing, I do these steps. Now we need to think about where are our troops, what are our goals, what do we want to do? Well, my thought process is let's eliminate China so he's not pushing on us, and then we can move and start doing things in other parts of the world. Maybe we can take Russia. Maybe we can, eventually help Germany against Britain if we want to do that. I mean, we could alternatively switch sides. Again, you don't have to play historically, and we could attack Germany. We could ally with Russia, like whatever we want to do. But for the purposes of this video, I'm probably just going to ally with Germany and see what comes. Now, because we can't produce metals on our own, and because we don't have that many high coal producers, we need to think about, since we're a more minor country right now, you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen underneath where the C zone is, you see where it says all the nations, and we are near the bottom. We're right above Italy. So when you're near the bottom of this list, it means you don't have that much economical power, and we really don't as Japan. We have coal, which means we can make big cities, but everything we make in a large city, let's just click on Tokyo here for a second. If we want to make any kind of land forces that's like a tank, you can see right there it requires 1 coal and 1 metal per IPU. Tokyo's 66 IPUs, so if I click on this, it's going to take 66 of my metals just to start making a tank. So I'm, and you can see how quickly that's going to drain. At the very top of our screen are 133 gaining 122 metals every turn. Same thing with any naval ship, all metals, any air force, all metals. So we need more metals as our cities get larger, and Sweden isn't going to necessarily give us any more. So we need to take them from people that have metals, which is really only the major powers of the game. We're not going to succeed in taking the metals from America, so don't even think about it. And you can kind of look here, if you click again on the gold bars and you click world trade, on this screen here you can see who the top producers are. America, Russia, Germany, France, and Britain. So more than likely you're going to have to take from one of those. Now, I will tell you there are not a lot of metals in India, there are not a lot of metals in China, and all of Russia's metals are way over here, again, in the Ukraine area. So there are metals here. There's obviously metals in Sweden, but they're already trading with us, so we don't need to worry about that. France has a lot of metals, but it's more than likely that Germany is going to get them. Britain's mainland has a lot of metals. And other than that, you really don't have very many choices no matter where you look in the world. You can find some sometimes, but they're always very small. You can see that one's just making 6. You know, most of these are coal. Again, we don't really want to attack the Philippines. And even, you know, Australia, 6, like you're not going to gain much down there versus, you know, if we could take these territories from Russia, 47, that's pretty juicy. 11, that's pretty juicy. 62. 62. So this area right in here is what we would really like to do. So with that, we might have to sail up and around. We might have to relocate our navy. But first things first, let's do and declare war on China. And as long as we're allied with Germany, more than likely he's going to succeed, and more than likely he's going to trade with us. So what we could do, just to build up our stock, is let's go into the world trade, since we're going to commit to allying with Germany. And let's just buy his metals. Let's just let him know, hey, you know, we're definitely interested in helping you out, and then we can get more of those as time comes. So let's research. We need to travel places in the future, and the best thing to do if you're going to buy ships in the limits of peace, getting to advanced battleships is 2 steps. It takes a really long time. Cruisers is your best bet. So we're going to go large cruisers. And that's going to be, for now, I think the only thing we research. We could also do tanks. Let's actually do light tanks. Let's do light tanks and that one. So we're going to prioritize light tanks. So when you get on this research screen, which is the research projects in the bottom right-hand corner, the one with the green vial and the microscope, that brings up this one, and then when you click projects, the first tab, you just want to make sure that light tanks is on top, and you can use these symbols on the right hand side to move it up, move it down, move it all the way up, all the way down if you have multiple projects. But we want to make sure light tanks are on the bottom, because as we allocate IPUs, it starts at the top and it moves its way down. So if we click back, we're going to close the screen, we're going to click on the globe. We can look here where at the upper right hand corner it says our research projects are 0 out of 150. So we really should try to allocate a lot more towards research. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make our first 2 cities all about doing our research. And we're almost at that 150 mark. I like my ports. Mukden is not a port, so we are going to also make that research. We are a little bit short on stuff here. We're missing, what, 18? Let's go ahead and we're actually just going to leave it at that. So I'll show you what this means now. If I close this screen, if I click on where the green vial is, you can see that we're full on light tanks. We're 80 out of 80, but we're only 52 out of 70 with large cruisers. What does that mean? That means that not every turn, but probably every other turn or every 3 turns, we'll gain 1 point towards our progress of our 0 of 40. But most every turn, we will gain 1 progress towards light tanks, which means roughly 25 turns we'll have tanks, and at this rate, roughly 60 turns, let's just say, we'll have large cruisers. So, but when the tanks are done and as our cities grow, we can start adding to that. So hopefully we can get both of these done and researched by around turn 70. Because typically the world will stay pretty quiet until about turn, let's just say 87 to turn 90. So you have until then to just kind of do whatever you're going to do. Now, what's the rest of our cities going to do? we're just going to leave them on industry because we want to increase these ports, and even these smaller cities, starting at Sapporo, going all the way down that are at light industry, we want to get them to the point where they're trying to go from a light industry to what the symbol is on Nagasaki, which is a regular industry versus a light industry. Or I guess they're called heavy industry. So, and it takes about 10 turns for it to change, and we don't want it to go through that 10 turn phase. We just want to get this number of IPUs as high as we can, which is roughly 10. So we're going to let that do that, and now we're just going to relocate. We're going to fight China. We need to. And our land forces, we're just going to put them on this little country because it doesn't have a city. And I hate on an island nation when I'm building, because if I change Tokyo into a tank, it's just going to start adding to this army, and I don't want a bunch of infantry altogether. So I'm just going to, for simplicity's sake, move all of these guys here for maybe indefinitely or for their future purposes. Now our aircraft, we can get them over to China. So with aircraft, when you move them, if I just tell it to move here, you're going to see it goes through the sea and over, and it's going to take 4 turns. But the problem is it's going to actually put these planes on a boat, and it's going to use our supply at the top of our screen, our transportation stockpile, which is 13, to get them there. We don't want to do that. We just want to tell them to get as close as they can by flying. So rebase. So what I'm doing is I'm right-clicking on a country. You see, like, oh, this is too far, it's only a move. This is too far, it's only a move. But here, if I try to select this country here, Kansai, and I'm not going to pronounce these correctly, I apologize, but if we right-click on this one, we can then rebase, which means in 1 turn, this plane will move from where it's at right now, this guy right here, all the way down to right here in 1 turn. So I'm going to hop in there in 1 turn. In another turn, I'm going to try and get him, you know, maybe to this island or at the end. And eventually the goal is to get them up here. So we're just going to do that quickly with all of our planes. This one is a bomber. It can fly farther, so we're just going to immediately rebase it over there. This one's close enough. Can we not quite move there? So let's rebase him there. And that will get all of our planes flown across the Korean Strait. Now, the rest of our troops, we want to get them to a point where we can start fighting China. And I think I want to wait until I can start building up tanks before I start fighting China right away. I need a little bit more of a fighting force. So what I'm going to actually do here is, the way the computer functions is if he sees stuff on his border, so he can see what's in these 2 countries here, as well as this one, I'm going to try and reduce those so he doesn't think I'm a threat. So we're going to actually move these planes and everything and make this area our base of operations. So we're going to move all of our stuff. Move that guy. The only thing I'm going to leave is my artillery, because artillery doesn't move very quickly. And I will have everything else pile itself right here so that I'm ready to use it. Now let's manage our fleets. Okay, so I like telling all of my ships to move here to the Ryukyu Trench. Because when you start the game, you have some down here, and it's a mixture. You've got cruisers, you've got subs. I'm going to just put everything together, and then I will explain why I do that. You can click on the swords crossed at the top for military, and you can click on Navy, and then it will show you a list of where all your fleets are. So I have some in Hiroshima, which is one of these ports here, that one. So that's where I got to that screen. So Hiroshima, I'm going to tell it to leave port. It will then pop out right here. I'll hit the X to go back a screen, and I just want to make sure where all these nuns are. That means I haven't done anything with them yet. This one's in a port, we're going to leave. This one's in a port, we're going to leave. Now, as Japan, you have a lot of fighting force with your Navy. That is your strong point. If you click on the bottom right hand corner, there's a file folder that says Data Graphs and Archives. We're going to click on that. And if we click on the swords cross at the top of the screen, and then we click on Fleets, and then if I click where it says Total Ships at the far right upper corner, it will order by who has the most ships. And you can see we have more ships than the United States right now. That's not going to last very long, but we have enough supremacy to kind of state where we're going to be in the world, and right now that's the Pacific. So we're going to continuously use that to our advantage. That's like the exoskeleton that we were talking about. Now, at this point, I think we are pretty good. We're having our ships moving, we're reorganizing our planes, our cities are set up, we've done our economy stuff. Let's just end turn. And by and large, we're just going to be ending turn until we can get things where we need them. So our ship came out of port. We're going to move that over. This ship came out of port as well. And this one, let's just pile them all together so that we can do what we need to do with that. Also, we're going to tell our planes to rebase again. Getting everything all piled up. That is kind of one of the keys of this game, is the more you can have things piled up, the less you have to be thinking about and worrying about and all of that other stuff. So that's another thing. So what I did here also is if things are like way over here, you know, at a glance, that's really hard for me to tell what country is that in. You can select something and right click on it, and you can just reposition where the army is. It doesn't have any combat factor, but for me, I just like having stuff roughly in the middle because, oh, it's easy to see, yep, that's clearly in that territory. So that is just a little visual thing for me that I do sometimes. Let me look. I'm going to click on the gold bars again, and I'm going to click on World Trade, and we're going to see if Germany's offering any more metals. They're not yet, but that's okay. I'm also going to click on my industry at the very top on my cities, and I'm going to start looking to see, here I click on Next Finished, and you can see here Sapporo, which is a light industry. It's starting to upgrade. It's going to take 7 turns to do that just to make it still level 10, but a heavy industry. We don't want to do that for heavy industries, so I will just change that to Goods. Goods is the default. I'm not doing anything more with that city for the remainder of the game. This guy's just going to hang out there producing me goods. And the reason that I go to Goods, as I've explained in my previous video, is the click on the globe icon, and if you look at the goods here, my supply level's at 100, but I get a penalty if it's below 50. We want to avoid that penalty. The rest of the penalties we don't really care about, but that one we do, because we have more control over it. Okay, I'm just going to end turn again. My ship should mostly be where I want them to be, as well as most of my armies. We're going to rebase this plane, and then we're just going to clean this stuff up a little bit. So I'm going to click on this tank here. I'm just going to click merge. We're going to merge all these land forces. I'm going to click on one of these planes. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to click merge, and we're going to merge all these planes. So now we've got our plane group and our army group that he is not aware of over here for, you know, China's combat power. Now let's start with our Navy. Let's just combine everything into one first and foremost. And you can see we have 69 of our ships right there. Now, ships have different speeds, and if you're a force and you tell your ships to move somewhere, let's just illustrate this. Let's say I wanted to go to the coast of, you know, San Francisco or whatever here. We just right click there. It says, oh, it's going to take you 5 turns to get there. Well, that's depending on the speed of ships. If I split this off, and let's just say I take a light cruiser and I say, no, you're going to go separately and you're going to go to the same location. 3 turns. You see the difference there? So this guy's going to get there way faster than this guy. And the reason that is because the game takes the slowest ship in the fleet and moves at the speed of the slowest ship. So if you're trying to get somewhere to defend yourself or whatever that may be, speed is everything. So let's merge this guy back together, and here's what that means for me. Okay, first and foremost, carriers. I'm going to first take all of my carriers and I'm going to split them. Japan has 5. And if you're unsure how many you have, if you think you might be missing some, you can click on the swords crossed here again. And if you look at where it says Navy here, carriers, 5. And we know our 5 are now right here. So I do that first. I'm just going to, so this C zone doesn't get too clogged up, I'm just going to right click over here, reposition. Carriers can also patrol with their aircraft, but we just want to reposition it to get it out of the way now. And then I'm also going to go way down to the bottom here, and I'm going to take all of my battleships. I'm going to split those. I'm going to take all of my subs and split those. Now, let's just illustrate some speed things here. So, if I tell my subs to move over there 5 turns, we know that's definitely one of the slower ones. If I tell my battleships, move over there, 3 turns. Okay. If I tell my cruisers, which this is heavy and light cruisers, doesn't really make a difference in speed, and my destroyers, it was at 3 turns. Now, if I split, let's just double test this, right? Is there any faster ship? Let's take a heavy cruiser and a destroyer. Oh, we already did a heavy cruiser. 1 second. Let's split a destroyer. And we're just going to do some illustration of ships here. If we're trying to move to the west coast, that is 3 turns. And that is 3 turns. Now, let's just illustrate this in even longer distance. Let's go all the way to the North Sea. So 9 turns for a heavy cruiser. Our battleships are 11 turns. Nine turns for a destroyer. And for a light cruiser, oh, he's going the wrong way. First to San Francisco, then to the North Sea. So 9 turns. So going back over here now, let's get these other ones out of the way. Our battleships are 11 turns. The cruisers are 9, and the destroyers are 9. So the cruisers and destroyers are the quickest ships. Our subs are quite slow, 17 turns. And our battleships are a little bit slower at 11. So what I usually do, because this is all of our subs right now, we really only have 6, minus the few ships that are in here, which is just a little bit of subs, a little bit of cruisers. Subs by themselves are not that great. They're mostly there to just sort of spy on things, and you don't really need that many of them. So what I do, and what I would highly recommend, is let's merge all of this stuff together again. And we will go from there. So what I do is I take all of my battleships and all of my subs and I stick them together. And this is how I came to that conclusion. So now we have a pretty decent fleet at like 2,000 combat power. And this will actually be even a little bit more, because we are going to split all of these cruisers and destroyers off of those subs. And we will also have those separate. Same thing with this one, because we know cruisers and destroyers all move at the same speed. And we can now have those to do whatever we need them to do. So let's just move these all in here. And while we're waiting on that, well, let's just do that first. Let's just do that first. So we're just going to end turn just to illustrate this. It is good to sometimes double up on things when you can. We're just grouping our carriers and our cruisers and our destroyers here. And we're grouping all of our battleships and subs. Okay, so now here's our carriers, all of our cruisers and destroyers, and all of our battleships and subs. Now, what I like to do is, as Japan, I like to have 3 fleets, because you've got 22 battleships here that are moving slower because of the subs, and you have 61 cruisers. So you can sit here and count these to even them out however you want to, but I'm just going to take like about 5 of the cruisers. We're just going to take like 15 destroyers. Actually, I think about 10 is about half, and I think it's 15 light cruisers. That's going to get us pretty close. So I'm again just clicking to split the fleets. You click on them and it goes to the new group. It doesn't give you a count, but so here we've got like 31 and 30. That's pretty good. And the 2 groups are relatively even in combat power. You've got about 2,300 and 2,500. This is what I like for my defensive force. I keep my battleships close to home, so we're just going to keep them in the East China Sea. And then my cruisers, if I need to, I use them more kind of out and about to, you know, do whatever I'm going to do against my enemy. Now, China has a fleet here. It's a very small fleet in comparison to mine, but I'm going to use my battleships eventually to kill it. And my other 2 groups, I'll just kind of position along their coastline, because right now they're the really only threat that there would ever be that I would need to deal with. So we'll move those there. Now let's reposition these so they're kind of out of the way. Since they're moving, they're doing their thing. And again, this usually takes me a lot less time, but I want to really explain it to you guys so you understand why I'm doing it. Now, the next thing with Japan is you don't want anyone sneaking up on you. You can see that this sea zone here that I've highlighted, the Northwest Pacific, it's dark to me. I have no idea what's in there. America could have their entire navy there ready to kill me, and that's incredibly close to my homeland, because there's all this darkness out here. So that's what I use these early and light carriers for. So I'm going to actually split all of them into their own little groups. And that's because they're relatively weak with their aircraft and everything as a light carrier. You can make carriers better in this game. If I go to research naval carriers, super carriers are amazingly awesome, but they take a long time to get to. And fleet carriers are not bad, but light and early are relatively weak. And you can improve these characters if you look at the Air Force fighters. There's these improved carrier fighters and advanced carrier fighters. That does help them become a little bit more manageable, but again, by and large, that takes a lot of time. And you should probably use carriers as essentially spies. So when a carrier is in a sea zone, you can see every sea zone around you. Now, normally you can see a sea zone if you own an island. Like here we own this one, we own this one, that's why we can see these 2. But if we want to see what's going on over here, we would need to put a carrier there. So what I will usually do is I'll take one of these early carriers and I will start plopping them down somewhere. So it depends on how you want to do it. I can substitute these with submarines in these 2 sea zones, and I could move it all the way over here to the near strait. But in this case, I'm not going to really mess with subs too much, and it's not going to gain me that much. So I'm just going to plop one of the early carriers right here in the Emperor Sea, and that's going to allow me to see what's going on much closer to give me more reaction time. We could even plop a carrier all the way over by the Hawaiian Islands, but it's probably not necessary. So let's try and use the rest of them down in this area. So first and foremost, let's put an early carrier. I want to see with these light carriers what he's doing on land, so we're going to plop one in the corner there. And these can also be used for us to spy inwards on China when we start fighting him. And I will put the other one, let's just go somewhere that's not super threatening, probably up here in the Yellow Sea. Now, we're going to be able to see these two sea zones, but not this middle one. So we're going to plop one of these early carriers here. That should allow us to see this sea zone and a decent amount of what's going on in the Philippines if America starts doing something there. And we have one carrier left. So let's go ahead and plop him. We could either go up here in the Gulf of Siam, but for now let's just go down here to the Karimata Strait, and we can kind of just see what that looks like. Also, it looks like the rest of our troops moved, so we're just going to merge all these so there's less cluster. And there we have it. So that's pretty much where our forces are going to be. So let's in turn. Everything's kind of moved, and you can see, oh, we kind of left a dark spot there in the middle, but we can see quite well over there. It might not be necessary to be all the way down here, so let's move this carrier over here to cover this darkness, and we'll reposition this one to right there. Should be good. There we go. So you see what I did there. I can't easily see what's on this territory, but I can probably fix that. Nope, not quite. But that's quite all right. I mean, there's not a city that's... Oh, this one can. So you can see our carriers, like this one here, can start an air mission if I right-click. If I try to right-click too far away, you know, at the moment I'm right-clicking on these territories in Malaysia and Borneo with this carrier right here selected. And it's too far away for me to do anything, but if I right-click on this dark one, I can start an air mission, and that means I'll recon what's in this territory, and I'll light it up for myself, and that'll basically be the eternal job of that plane. So sometimes you can kind of get your planes to recon. Unfortunately, this one won't be able to... Oh, yes, I can recon Singapore. So there we go. But especially this plane, I very much doubt I'll be able to reach anything. None of those islands or Russia, so... That guy's just kind of hanging out. He's not going to be able to do much for us, but these two can. And this guy here can as well, so we're going to actually recon all the way in to the Sichuan province, and it looks like that's all the farther we're going to be able to go. With this guy here, we're just going to start reconning. Start air mission, extend air mission, extend air mission. I'm just kind of going up as many as I can, and that will give us more insight to what's in these territories. Again, knowledge is everything, especially when you're trying to be the aggressor. Now let's go back and let's look at our cities. I should have been looking at these more closely, but you can see this, well, Nagalta is on our main province, so we'll just let that slide. That one's good to increase because of its location on our main island, but these ones here, from Taihoku down to Busan, we don't want these to increase above 10. But right now, by and large, we are just sitting tight and waiting. You know, our cities are increasing, our ships are moved. We can now see a little bit more into what China's doing. And at this point in the game, you are just ending turn until you get to the point of having your ships. So let me just quickly do that. There's not going to be too much exciting stuff happening. That's our industry right here on our main island that increased. We're just going to let that keep going. Now the one thing we want to keep in mind though is where our goods supply is here. We're at 73. We're just going to keep ending turn for a while. And at some point we're going to have to balance that back out. But for now we're just going to let it go. Let's make sure none of these littler cities, they are now. We're going to switch all those to goods, because they're getting up as high as they can be. That one we let go a little bit longer. We'll let it just go to one more turn. Why not? It's not going to hurt anything. And now we will cut it off. And with the rest of my IPUs, I'm just waiting on Busan there. We're just going to in-turn a few more times. Where are we at? Oh, still not quite. Still not quite. Okay, so now we'll get that one. So you can see where I'm at here. All the lower cities are on goods. All of these ones that are increasing still are on my main island. Now I just need to be mindful of this goods supply level. So You can see where it's at right now. It is at 49%. It's a glitch in the game. It hasn't given me a penalty yet. It's still green, but it pretty much will next turn. So we need to now stop building these cities up. We need more goods. We have to balance out this a little bit. Our people are starting to complain. So since this one's going to be 3 more turns, we're just going to make that goods. Nagasaki here, we're also going to make that goods, and then we will just deal with it as it comes here. So I'm going to intern one more time. We have hit a little bit of a penalty, but we are in the process of getting that back where it needs to be. So I let Hiroshima and Kawamoto finish one more time. We're going to switch those back over to goods, and that should just about balance us out there. So you can see we bounce back up. We're just going to hit intern a few more times. I'm going to get that to about 60 if I can. And these are random events. You can either increase or lose. It's unfortunate. We lost 2 points on light tanks. It's a random roll that can happen sometimes. All of these pop-ups that you'll see on the screen. So we're going to just let that go up a little bit. We want to get that to like 55, maybe 60 before we start messing around with it again. And you can see we're kind of balancing out our finances here too, right? Like goods make you money. It's helping us at least not go any lower. Now, all this transportation we were increasing. Remember Hokkaido here, it doesn't produce very many metals for us, but it produces a decent amount of coal. And coal is something we need to continuously increase our cities. And we have a boost of 12 right now. We are going to increase production, or rather transportation again on this, just to really maximize what this coal mine can do. Because that and this coal down here are essentially our resource heartland. Yeah, we're just going to intern. I'm just trying to get this up a little bit. We will see a pop-up when we finished those tanks. Okay, we have an advanced city. Once I get an advanced city, for me, that's usually a key to, okay, let's switch that to goods, and let's get the rest of these up to advanced cities. So I'm going to start plugging these away again, including Nogalta, or Niigata. I think I've been saying that wrong. And we are just going to let that kind of start going down again with our goods, or balancing out, because we do have an advanced city that's making goods now. And there's our light tanks. So you can see we're like turn 42 and we have light tanks. So I'm going to wait to start building them, and we're instead going to cut off some of our research to goods. We need 5 more, so we're going to just say Port Arthur, you can be research. So you can see here what I did is on the right hand side there's research projects, 72 out of 70. I have just a little bit more than what I need, but that's fine. I'd rather have more than less if I want one every turn. And I'm just trying to balance out my numbers, and like I said, goods on anything that I'm not building with yet, because the more goods that I have here, the more of these industries in the middle that I can get up to. Ideally, I want to get all of these port cities that are on my main island to around 50. That's when they'll get to an advanced city. That's when eventually, let's go back to our research here. When this is done, my cruisers, I can make them out of every port city on the Japan main island. And that is a lot. That is a very, very defensible, good position to be in. Now, at some point here, we'll have to start aggressing on China, but I'd like to get a few more of these cities up, so let's just let that happen. Here's another transportation, but now for down here, again, I want that to level 4. Level 4 is the max, so we're going to just let that keep going. At some point here, we'll probably see our food pop up as well, which we will just do the same thing with. China declared war on communist China. So this guy is going down. China is going to see to it. Can't really see too much what he has on here, but he's got like 30 troops there. He's got 20 there. He probably has more on these darker territories that I can't see. But let's just continue on. It's not our problem right now. Oh, Yokohama increased to advanced. So let us... where are we at on our goods? Our goods are actually going up now. We actually have a steady increase of goods. So what I will do is I'm going to let... I'm going to let this go to goods, and I'm going to tell Osaka and Negatoya to start making tanks. Again, that was a good little boost. We're just kind of ending turn. See, with this game, most of it is like first turn or first couple turns setup. And once you have your stuff where you need it to be, then this is what you will see. And you can see the Spanish Rebellion is happening and stuff is happening over there. Now, I'm not too worried about this financial penalty. I can't do anything about it, and it's something that you can deal with because it is an IPU penalty, but goods are also an IPU penalty, but you can manage goods a lot more than you can manage your finances if you're trying to progress through the game. So again, not too worried about these penalties over here, especially arms. As I've said before, I don't use arms. You can function without arms. It's essentially a broken function of the game. But yeah, we're building some tanks here. Our goods supply is still actually going up. We're actually doing quite well on our goods supply level. I'm going to actually tell Yokohama here to build some transports for me because we will need both transports and tanks to get these over to mainland China. So we're just going to end turn a couple of times. I'll have to really kind of watch my goods supply here because it's going to start going down for sure. Agriculture improved over here. We're not going to increase that one. That is level 1 now, but there is always a chance we could lose it. Let's actually take a look, though. Yeah. I think we're going to wait and just sort of leave it where it's at. And we're going to, again, just focus on our main island. Again, there's a few nuances that you can do to this game, little things that can maybe help you later on. Making history is a lot about looking ahead. Where do I want to be 50 turns down the road? How do I get there? Where are my biggest threats? How can I survive? So you can see here, food, we're just going to upgrade these two. We're really just getting our financial, economical baseline. We're trying to minimize how much money we're spending. That's why I'm not researching a bunch of stuff. We're just trying to pinpoint focus on a few little things. Our goods supply is sort of starting to go down a little bit. Our food is sitting really good though right now. So here's another thing we could do. We have 8,000 stockpiled, 281 per turn, and it's in the fall. So our food will be producing the most in the summer. The fall and the spring is somewhere in the middle, and the worst in the winter. So when I see still a positive 200 in the fall, that tells me I am totally willing to trade, if someone wants it, about 200 food. Especially because even if we start losing, we have a lot of excess. So let's just throw that up on the market. If someone wants to grab it, we'll see our finances balance out a little bit more. And it may or may not happen, but we'll just kind of put it up there. Our Australia is about 1, so that's better than nothing, but it's there. Okay, so we're starting to have problems with our penalty again. We have 39 ship transports though, so we're going to switch this back to goods. And very soon we'll have Hiroshima as well to help balance that out. And there is our cruisers. So now, in my own opinion, I'm not going to probably research anything for the rest of the game. So let's switch these back to goods. Let's actually have Tokyo build tanks. And let's slide with that a little bit. I want to see if my goods are going up or down. Hiroshima's advanced. Let us switch that to building some transports again, just to keep our transports up, because we have 39 right now. We're going to pretty much use them all on tanks. 8 plus 7. We're going to eventually need some more tanks here. Okay, so we're starting to lose metals. And that was the problem that, again, I was talking about. The more we start making our tanks, our ships, these kind of things that require metals per our IPUs with how large these cities are, you can see we're going to need a lot of them. So now we kind of have to go back to the drawing board with, hey, we need some metals. So let's add this request. Let's do like 215. At this point, anyone that's willing to spend them for us, let's go ahead and do that. I did see, it's not much, but Sweden's offering a little bit more, so let's just jump on that. And hopefully this can start to balance out. We have a stockpile because of what we bought turn 1, which that's why we did that. We have 7,000, so it's going to be a while before we run out, but we don't want to run out if we can at all help it. And we want to keep building. So I'm just going to go a little bit more here just to kind of illustrate where we're at with our tanks and everything. Transportation is getting up there. It is a slower start with Japan. You can see we're almost to like 100 turns here, but it's because we're waiting on these tanks to build up. We're waiting on these transports to keep ferrying them. This can probably go to tanks now. We did get some more metals. Our goods have really kind of balanced out. Our finances aren't horrible. I mean, for a smaller country, you know, we're doing better than China now, so there's that. And we're getting all of these port cities up to a good number where we can start doing something with them. Introductional structure improved to advanced, so that can switch to something. Let's just do another tank right now. We have a lot of transports. Our metals, we are going to need metals eventually. We'll just keep that where it's at. And I'm just really watching this so that this number doesn't go below 50. Again, the number at the top of the screen doesn't matter as much as that one does. And you can see we're getting some good piles of tanks. We got 4, 11, 11, 1 starting there, and then whatever we have here. And again, we can kind of see China's sort of starting to get up there. You know, he does have 100 on our border, but you know, we have enough to kind of stop him there, and then it's just whether or not we can unload and through guerrilla tactics kind of get into his territory and start messing him up. I just want to get as many tanks as I possibly can. All of these things building tanks is just great. And very soon Nagasaki will join with even more tanks. We have 48. Make sure we're not going over that. So we've got 18, 28, 30, 32, 33. So we'll have to start building transports probably with Nagasaki. So Australia unconditionally surrendered again, turn 87. That is an event that happens for the Anschluss, and Germany annexed them. Now shortly after that, they will start aggressing. Okay, Nagasaki, we are going to switch you to transports so that we can continue to keep that going. And we have a really good balance in our goods right now. Just everything is super, super great. So let's just, next turn, let's kind of start planning this invasion. So I'm going to now tell all of these tanks, hey, get into the water, use those transports. We're not at war with anybody. There isn't anyone that should feel threatened by this move. Let's start actually doing something with all of this army. So we're going to merge all these together. We've got 34 tanks, and you can see combat power is 0. That's because it's on a transport. If you want to hover over it with your mouse, which is what I'm doing right now, you can see my land combat power is 1,360, which is quite better than China's 100. Plus over here we have another 300. So let's invade China. So we're going to split this group into 2 different pieces, and then I'm going to get these guys close. It always takes a turn to invade. So let's do this. Let's send these 8. Actually, let's send a larger. Let me see. I'm going to actually do this a little differently. I'm going to split these all into an even group. So 42 divided by 3. What are we looking at here? 14. Okay, so now we have 3 groups of 14, which is 560 combat power. Now we're also going to move this closer. And our planes, because we're ready to fight now. He's going to have 1 turn to reposition to see what we're doing. And I want to see, he does have 3 ships in that port. He does have 1 ship in that port. All of these ships are going to leave port when I do this. Doesn't have any ships down here, except for this one. So we're going to move that. No ships there. Okay, so we are going to move to the South China Sea. We're going to move this one. It's just a corvette. I just want to split a couple of these off to kill that corvette, because he's going to leave port when he sees me trying to invade him. So I'm essentially just trying to have something in place to kill that ship so that I don't lose these tanks that are on boats, because I can't defend myself. We're going to move that to that sea zone, and we're going to move this guy. Let's just move him to here as well. Okay. We'll end turn. Okay, so now and we can't unload. If I try to unload, it'll say this is a declaration of war. So we're just simply going to move into the sea zones where he has the least amount of ships that can do anything about it. So we'll move here, we'll move here, we'll merge these up. And now he will feel very threatened because he will see that I have land forces off his coast. And now let's invade. So we're going to attack up here. We are now at war. Let's start bombing. Mostly up here we are just trying to attract his attention. You can see he's starting to move his troops up. That's what we like to see. He's trying to mobilize very quickly. He's very threatened by that large group of everything that we just threw back into Fiang 10. But unfortunately, he will have to deal with more than just that. So I am looking to see where he is least defended. So here he's got 30 combat power. Here he's got another 30. Let's invade Xizang. And here we have just 10 combat power. So we will invade Jiangsu. And this is just kind of depending on where he put all of his troops, but you can see we're invading all over the place so that he can't mobilize his entire army all at once, and he has to kind of deal with multiple invasions at the same time. Now, let's continue to move our tanks into the sea. See what we have going on here. Keep an eye on our goods. We can't ignore that for our combat. And we will now be invading China. And you can see here our 560 to his 10, to his 30, to his 10, and then very soon, you know, a pretty even match up here, just to kind of keep him busy. He did not leave port with his ship for whatever reason, so we were able to unload immediately all right away. That was very, very good. And now we want to attack him someplace else, so I'm going to move over here. And I'm going to actually have this ship just help this one in battle. And we're going to merge all of these transports. And I want to be careful that I avoid the coastline where the battles are still happening. That's why I'm telling him to move to the South China Sea first. And then we'll move up and around back here to this country with this guy. Can merge all of those tanks together. And these two, we will just throw them into this larger fight here. Which actually, he does still have a ship in that port, so let's move him down like that. Well, I'm battling there still, so let's just do that. Okay. So this is just, again, all about pushing into his territory, doing everything that I can to kind of stop him. We can have our carrier stop looking at what's going on and instead just provide air support to some of these combats that are happening. So we're going to do that. I think he has left port now and everything, so I'm just going to hang out with this guy over here. And we should very soon start winning a lot of these wars, because he is losing a lot more troops than I am. There we go. And now we have free reign to just kind of go wherever we want within his country. Now with these two, I'm going to actually split them into true groups of 7, because the more territory that I can cover at once, the better. And that will then take his cities. He'll lose his ability to do other things. There's just going to be a lot of negative impacts for him. So there's nothing in these countries up here that I can see right now. So I'm just going to tell this tank to loop through, again, kind of a blitzkrieg maneuver. He's got 20 up there. We'll have this one go up here. We'll have this one kind of loop around. We just want to take as many territories as we can. And it's, again, okay if we start losing our countries up here in Manchuria, because we'll get them back. It's not that big of a deal. They don't really provide a lot for us. So we don't really lose much by losing that, considering what we're gaining. We'll have this tank just kind of going. Now we have to be careful, because again, if we just right click, you can see the idiot wants to drive all the way around. It's like, no, micromanage is sometimes necessary. Please just unload the shorter way. Get some more of these tanks going. The more we can get over there, the better, just in case he does have something later on that he can throw at us. We're getting some idle cities. I just throw these on goods. I pretty much do this with any fight. And checking on our goods supply, we're still doing quite well. Here we're doing quite well. Niigata, our last city, is almost where it needs to be. And there we have it. That's 100 turns into Japan and what the start of the game looks like. So you can see here we've been merging our tanks together. You can see we have almost all of our cities. We'll go back to that screen. Let's just quickly switch these to goods since we took them. But you can see almost all of our port cities now. 4 more turns and even Niigata will be at advance, and that will be all of them on the Japan mainland. That is where our heartland is. We are doing quite well. Our ships have killed all of Japan's, or all of China's ships, and not really lost too much. We still have 2,000 combat there, 2,000 there. This one I split, but you can see 16 plus 4. Again, that's 2,000. We didn't lose any of our carriers. We're winning all of our fights single-handedly. We still have 800 here that we can be swooping around with. You know, he might have slightly larger pockets here. A lot of the stuff back here that, you know, he just didn't mobilize to the front because, again, the quick maneuver that we had into trying to get him. Hibe here might be a little bit more of a challenge to win, but by the time we finish up everything down here, these other tanks can swoop up and help. And all of our troops that were in Manchuria at the start of the game are all infantry and everything that we're losing anyways, so even if we do lose this battle, we're not really out any strong resources. And if you look at the rest of the world, you know, Germany hasn't even started to declare war yet. He'll probably wait a couple turns still. If you look at this chart here, you can see our military combat power has just increased. It's sort of hard to see the yellow line there by the blue one near the top, but that is us. You know, China, the very bottom one, is going down. That is just an overall very good sign. We haven't been building fleets, but you can see we're still second place. So we still have a good defensible position. And once we're done with China, you know, we could then switch our cities over if we needed to start building those cruisers. If I click change order, they are done now. You can see the large cruisers right here. Very, very powerful ships. Very fast ships because they're a cruiser. And at that point, we could start moving away from the Pacific with a larger army, potentially invading the Black Sea. There are many options. But again, this is the best way to do an opening of Japan. It's very efficient. You're in a lot of control of what you're doing. You're only fighting China. You're not fighting all of these other little countries or irritating anyone else. And even Britain hasn't decided to stop you right now. They're just going to let China die. So this is what I would do. And if, again, I'm just going to end the video here, but if you guys like this kind of stuff, let me know. Again, I apologize if I didn't explain everything in great detail. I apologize if this video went a little bit longer, as I think it did. And hopefully this is really informative for you guys, and hopefully it's a way for you to kind of look at Japan in a new light if you enjoy this game, and you can kind of see how he can be very menacing. I've had plenty of games in the future, or in the past rather, with friends where I went toe-to-toe with the British Navy, with the German ally. You can actually do a lot of assistance for other territories like Germany that don't have a strong navy. So there's plenty of options here, and you're in a position where you could ally with the Americas or the other democracies. You could ally with Russia and provide them sort of a Pacific buffer zone. There's plenty of options. Japan is one of my more favorite countries to play as in this game, just because they're viewed as such an underdog, yet they do have the capabilities for doing something very offensive. And lastly, I will again remind that I am very reliant on trade right now. That is my Achilles heel. You can see all of these imports, mostly from Sweden and Germany. These ones, if they cut me off, it wouldn't be detrimental, but if you don't have someone like Germany and what you got from Sweden at the beginning of the game, you will not be able to continue to produce all of these tanks that require, and ships that require metals as your cities grow larger. So do keep that in mind. That is your Achilles heel. Have a plan. Don't just be like Germany and declare war on everyone. You are reliant on a resource. But yeah,